It's working, Mr. Libin. Do I have to call you Mr. Libin? You look so formal
I
and
don't
official
think you
today. I
should.
feel like I do.
Well, I just came from a field across morning sunrise ceremony, and then unusually today, I'm actually heading back for the sunset ceremony. I usually only do the mornings, but today I'm doing
Yeah,
both
you're
because
gonna do
tonight's
double duty.
a very well, it's a very special one tonight. So
Yeah,
yeah, we can talk about that. But anyway, so yes,
absolutely.
I'm in my my regimental attire today. I thought it was
I know. I
appropriate.
feel like, oh, I wore sweatpants and leggings. Like I really should have dressed up for this coffee. I feel it's a good thing it's not in
No,
person.
no way. I think you got to be comfortable.
I'm just teasing you. We're just going to give people a moment to join us in the virtual coffee club and have kind of coffee with us. It's a little bit later in the morning than usual. Thank you for agreeing to come on today. We normally do Monday, Wednesday, Friday, but I really wanted to leave tomorrow as a day to honor our vets and honor our fallen heroes and space that out. So I wanted to connect with you today about that. But so we're kind of in a different time slot. So we'll let people get notified that we're here. Hi, Cheryl. Please say hello in the comments as you join us. Let us know you're hanging out. And then I'm going to tell you why I have this finely dressed man hanging out with us on a Thursday morning.
And I'm going to warn everybody in advance that I my eyesight doesn't allow me to see the comments from where I'm sitting. So you'll have
That's
to
okay.
help me with that, Jody, if there's any questions.
I will. And Nathalie, good morning. Angie, see, everybody's just waking up slowly with us. And for those who are catching this video on the replay later, if you do have any questions for the conversation that Sean and I are going to have, or you want to offer a comment or a hello or anything, please do so because he will see those later afterwards. And we can answer any questions and connect as we always do. But you're somebody who's been on my list, Sean, for a long time to get on Coffee Club, but probably I haven't asked you yet because there's goodness, you do a multitude of things. And so I was just always like, what can I talk to him about specifically? Because I think that really we could do multiple shows with you. And maybe now that I've got you in for one, I can hook you for future ones because I think we can have
Absolutely.
a lot of conversations about a lot of things. But what I really admire so much about you is that you have this unbelievable passion for serving community. And I'm so drawn to your like friends. This guy is an award-winning volunteer. And most people you don't hear those together because volunteers just do it because they love community. But you've been recognized on some pretty high levels for the service that you give back. And I just want to take a moment and applaud that because you give a lot of your service and time to community, not just in Calgary, but really even across the country. And I think it's so admirable.
Well, that's sweet of you to say. And you know, I'm blessed to live in Calgary, where we are perhaps the greatest volunteer city in Canada. I think even statistically per capita, I think we're the highest group of philanthropists in the country. And you know, I don't have to tell the people. I assume most of the people here are from Calgary, but it's the greatest city for volunteering. And I've been lucky. I started volunteering when I was 13 years old, and looking back recently, I realized that I haven't had a day since I was 13 where I haven't been a volunteer in one or many capacities. And I did it I volunteer just because I get involved in things and I love giving back. I never had a big bank account, so I couldn't write checks like so many other people could. So I had to get in and get my hands dirty and give my time. And eventually my time turned in a little bit of, you know, experience and I hesitate to say expertise sometimes, but you know, I think we as people have to give back in some ways. So, hey, if you can write a check, great. If you can't, give your time or give your expertise and make our community a better place. So I appreciate you touching on that and thanks for recognizing that.
Oh,
And by the way, to your point, Jody, none of us volunteer for recognition. We volunteer because we feel it's the thing we want to do in whatever way we're doing it. But it is nice when you have been doing it for a long time and you've done it for the right reasons. And every once in a while, it's not so much the award or the certificate or the medal or whatever you may get. Those are just a token of the fact that people have recognized and actually appreciated what you've done. And so any kind of accolades that we as volunteers get are just that. They're just a larger thank you from the community that we're serving.
Yeah, that's awesome. Good morning, Rob. Welcome. Well, today we're going to pick your brain about one topic in particular, and that is, of course, knowing the importance of this week, especially the importance of tomorrow. And you're involved with the Field of Crosses in Calgary. Now, we get people who join us from Coffee Club from all over Canada, the US, and even some in Europe and around the world.
Wow.
And so there's some people who may not be familiar with the Field of Crosses. So if we could start just by talking about what exactly that is. And I would bet there's probably even people in our local area who aren't familiar with Field of Crosses.
You know what? I love bragging on Field of Crosses. So I don't know how long Virtual Coffee Club is, but I could stay here for hours bragging on various things. So Field of Crosses, for especially those that are not in Calgary and don't know, we have a major thoroughfare in our city called Memorial Drive, and Memorial Drive is named in honor of our veterans. When we think of our veterans, we typically think of World War I, World War II, and most recently Afghanistan. But of course, Canadians also fought in the Korean conflict, and we have an amazing, and Vietnam, by the way, and we have an amazing tradition of peacekeeping around the world. So Canadians are internationally recognized as peacekeepers, and being a peacekeeper doesn't mean that you're not at risk, and we've lost several peacekeepers on duty. So on Memorial Drive, starting on November the 1st, running through until tomorrow, November the 11th, if you're driving down around the 300 block of Memorial Drive West on the north side, there's a small strip that's a city park. It's called Sunnyside Park when it's not Field of Crosses, but it's really become known as Field of Crosses even year long. And on the first day of November, actually a few days in advance, there are now 3,700 crosses that are row on row in Sunnyside Park in Field of Crosses. And I'm going to warn you right now, by the way, as I talk about some of these things, it's weird. I'm tearing up right now. And I think it's because for the last, sorry, I should have grabbed a Kleenex. I think it's because for the last 10 days, we've had 2 ceremonies a day at Field of Crosses. I'm bouncing around. I'll come back, but we've had 2 ceremonies a day, and we tend to push it down. We're standing at attention, the veterans, and we tend to push it down. And what I find is day 1, no problem, day 2, day 3, day 4, day 5, day 6. And as we start getting into today, day 10, and each day we honor a different sort of group of people. We honor everybody, but we focus on a different group. Today it happened to be women in combat. And people like Captain Nicole Goddard and Michelle Lang, who were killed in Afghanistan, and different people. And I find that there's nowhere to push it down anymore. So the emotions are sitting right on my sleeve. So don't think I'm a big wuss for tearing up, but I'm gonna throughout the morning here.
We're a cry-friendly club. I do it on the regular. Emotions are important, so please express them. Do not.
Yes. No. So how Field of Crosses started was 15 years ago. A gentleman, a Calgarian, a philanthropist named Murray McCann started. He owns a home also in Rome, Georgia, and he was out for a drive in Rome, Georgia, and he looked up on a hill, and there was several crosses row on row. It was dozens, not hundreds. And they were representing the fallen from that area. And Murray used that as an impetus for an idea that couldn't we do something similar in Calgary for our veterans who have fallen all throughout Southern Alberta. So anyone from Southern Alberta, let's get a cross for them. Let's put their name on it, their rank, their regiment, and their date of death. And let's personalize each one of those stories. So Murray approached the city of Calgary with another great Calgarian, George Brookman, and the city said, yes, we'll allow you to have this little strip of land on Memorial Drive. And in that first year, there was only a couple hundred crosses. And and there was hardly anybody showed up, as is the case with most overnight success stories. And year after year, the field of crosses grew from a couple hundred to now over 3,700. And again, it's not bare crosses. These are crosses with names. And then what started years ago were I'm not part of Field of Crosses per se. I'm not on the board. I'm not a member, but I support Field of Crosses and I attend each morning. So I feel like I'm a we. And so Field of Crosses approached a number of our school children and tasked them with, let's find out some history and some information about each one of these people. And there are, I forget the number, but out of 3,700, I think there's over 1,500 that have a little card, a little laminated placard with often a photo and the story of that sailor, soldier, or air crew. And so it's really personal down there now. And so what happens each day is at sunrise, and that changes a couple of minutes every day. So this morning it was at 7:47, I believe. We have a ceremony, and it's a really short ceremony. It doesn't last longer than about 18 to 20 minutes, but it's enough for us to recognize, honor, and celebrate our fallen and our veterans. And so each day there's a flag party. It's usually a different group. This morning, because it was women themed, we had women from the Alberta Sheriffs, and there's 6 or 7 in the flag party, and they march on the color, or they march on. They stand at the flagpole. We have 4 different flags, and then the honor guard stands at attention. The honor guard is usually made up of veterans, of which I stand, Calgary Police, Calgary Fire, EMS, Sheriffs, RCMP. I think that's the main ones. And so there's a bunch of uniformed personnel, and we all stand at attention. Then there's some dignitaries there each morning, and there's usually a children's choir, and that's one of the greatest parts. So we'll get a high school that, or junior high, or even an elementary. And actually the other day we had the Robbie Burns singers, so we had adults. But we get this choir comes in. So a ceremony is pretty brisk. It's March on the Colors, O Canada, led by the choir. A little bit of speaking about the theme of the day, which is, usually a few minutes. Usually a poem, the act of remembrance, where we sort of say a poem where we respond and say we will remember them, which is what we're there for. A response by the youth to that, of their commitment to remember them, which is something we'll talk about here today. And then last post, the bagpiper plays lament. So the bugler plays last post, bagpiper plays lament, the bugler plays rouse, the flag goes back up, and then we sing God Save the King, and we're dismissed and we're out of there. And it's about 19 to 20 minutes. The same thing is repeated in the evening at sunset, except it's kind of in reverse. We're lowering the flags, and there are a couple of different niches of that ceremony. So for 10 days, there are 2 ceremonies a day. And then on the 11th day at 11 a.m., we, of course, have our Remembrance Day ceremony, which in Calgary is broadcast live on global television. So that's the Field of Crosses ceremony that you see if you're watching global TV. So that's a bit of a short synopsis of what Field of Crosses is. And it's I think it's something that's become really special and a part of the fabric of Calgary. I think people that do know about it really appreciate it. And those who don't know about it, I hope they learn about it through, people like yourself.
Well, and I think what's beautiful about this space that's created for it is if people couldn't, because of work schedule or like if you couldn't make it to a sunrise or sunset ceremony, they're set up there for that entire week. So there's an opportunity where you could really stop over and take a moment, whatever that looks like for you, at any time during those 10 days?
Yeah, I'm so glad you said that because that's exactly right. It's there 24 hours a day, so you can go there on your own schedule. And then there's another thing that started a few years ago called Coffee at the Crosses, which I think your group would appreciate.
Yeah.
A bunch of coffee lovers. So Coffee at the Crosses started about 5 years ago, maybe, or 6 years ago. And our MC down there, who's retired Major Kent Griffith from the Calgary Highlanders, my wrong side, my old regiment.
Yeah.
Um, so Kent does a thing called Coffee at the Crosses a couple of times a day, and he kind of does a walking guided tour through the crosses where he'll stop at certain places and tell some more significant stories of some of the people. For example, we have Victoria Cross recipients from Calgary that he'll maybe tell that story of that individual and what he did before he died, how, maybe the battle and that kind of thing. So for me, I have a close connection to the 158 members that we lost in Afghanistan. And I've met many of those Silver Cross families. That's what the military calls a family that's lost a son or a daughter. So I have gotten to know a lot of those Silver Cross families. I was in Afghanistan and got a chance to see the memorial that was created in the headquarters compound in Kandahar. Each time we lost a member, a gentleman here in Calgary created a plaque, a laser etched plaque with the regimental logo, a photo of the member, and their details, and that went up in this memorial. And it started with a handful, and before we left, it was 158 plus a diplomat plus a journalist here from Calgary. So Calgary definitely has a connection to that, and those 158 are also represented in the field of crosses. It's all alphabetical, by the way, so it's pretty easy to find people because it's all alphabetical. So yeah, you can take your time, wander through there, and it doesn't really matter what you do to remember our troops and our first responders, as long as you do something to remember them. And frankly, I don't care if you do it on the 11th of November or if you do it on the 3rd of October or the 4th of July. As long as Canadians take a moment to stop, to pause, to reflect, and to pay respect, I don't know if you have to do it on the 11th. I like that. I hope that you do. I hope that everybody tomorrow takes a moment at 11 a.m. and just stop what you're doing. If you're at your desk, stop, stand up. If you're driving, pull over, take a moment and stand up. Because there's so many that have gone before us that have done so much to allow us to. And I know that seems like a big concept. We say, oh, thank you for our freedom. But if you go back to World War I and World War II, I can't imagine what would have happened if countries from around the world, the Allies, didn't
Step up.
step up and do what they did, and in the most horrible of circumstances. And we're standing at attention yesterday morning at minus 26 degrees, and our ears are uncovered, and
Yeah.
we're cold, but I don't think I want to be that comfortable on those ceremonies. I think I kind of like to be a little bit uncomfortable because it's such a reminder that for my 20 minutes of discomfort before I hop into a heated vehicle, these men and women, mostly men, were months of living in the most horrible conditions, in trenches, in fields, without cover and without hot showers. And so again, I hope you connect with Remembrance Day in some way, shape, or form. And honor our troops, because uh, we have to, and then we have to pass that message along to each generation. And as we get further away from these larger wars and these larger conflicts, uh, there's not many World War II veterans. You know, they're starting to die off at a rapid pace. There are no World War One veterans left. Um, Afghanistan will be different, and so if we don't continue to remind each generation moving forward what happened, history can repeat itself, or we'll just lose the respect and the touch for our history. So that's just my soapbox for today. I guess you gave me a soapbox, so I'm
Yep,
going to use
no,
it.
the soapbox is yours. Well, and I think too, we were talking a little bit about that before we went live, is that there's an interesting disconnect for people with Remembrance Day. And I think you touch on it with length of time that goes between, or if you were families who maybe you don't know if you had relatives who fought, like you don't have that distinct tied connection to. It's easy to just be a little bit more flippant about the day or the memories. But I'm hoping that changes that we've had in our world, changes we've had as humans, things that we've experienced, although not anywhere near that level, allow us to just feel that connection back to what happened with history and what happened with our humanity and what happened in our world. And we have to break it down to those easy ways. Like, yes, buying a poppy is a lovely first step to having that honor. But I love that you even said tomorrow, just at 11 o'clock, just take a minute. Just take a minute. We can do
Yeah,
that.
yeah. There's if you've got your Google nearby, well, not right now, but after we're done. But there's a great Canadian music artist named Terry Kelly, and he did a song. He's a blind musician, and he did a song called "Pittance of Time." And look at that video. Look, Google "Pittance of Time," and it's a really moving, powerful video. So
Yeah. There's little things that we can do, and they can ripple effect into really big things. I would love to take a moment to allow people as well, if you don't or you're not connected, or I would encourage you to also see if there is a veterans food bank or a veterans program that is in the community in which you connect in coffee club in. And maybe your little thing this year too, whether it be for tomorrow or in leading into Christmas, is to connect and support one of those programs also,
yeah, great idea.
because that's easy
Great
too
idea.
at the end of the day. And gosh, with the price of groceries this year, more and more people are accessing those food banks than ever before. So,
Yeah, there's a lot of different challenges that face our veterans and our serving members.
yeah.
If I just take it from the big picture down, I'll just use my own regiment as an example. Now, I was a Calgary Highlander, which is a reserve unit. It's an infantry unit. That was 100 years ago, back when I had hair and it was a dark black, like your coffee.
Yeah.
Um, and I didn't serve very long. I was in a couple years, and life got in the way. So being a reservist was amazing, but I couldn't continue in it. But I've stayed close to our regiment. I'm in our regimental association, and I try to talk to the serving members. We had a lot of serving members from our regiment, as well as from many others across Canada that deployed to Afghanistan.
Mhm.
Now, when a regular force unit like the PPCLI deploys, they train as a group, they live as a group, they deploy as a group, they experience the same things as a group, and they come back and support as a group. With reservists were kind of parachuted into a bunch of different places, whether it was Kandahar Airfield or Camp Nathan Smith or Kabul or different places. And they went kind of almost alone, got dropped in, and then when they came home, they came back to their regiment. But a lot of the people in their regiment, the majority of the people in their regiment, did not deploy, did not experience, did not suffer the same traumatic experiences that our deployed members did. And so what happens there is our reservists come home and they don't really have anyone to talk to. They
Mhm.
don't have that support group that say the PPCLI or the Van Dews have, because they went together, they came home together. Our guys kind of went and they came home, and they don't really have that support. And PTSD, what we now call PTSD, which used to be called battle fatigue, shell shock, all these different kinds of names. Doesn't matter what you want to call it. It's post traumatic stress disorder, and the things that our people saw and experienced, and even if they weren't troops in contact, they experienced the stress
Mhm.
that any minute as they're driving, they don't know what this vehicle ahead of them is going to do or what their intentions are. So we would have guys come home and they're driving in the minivan with the wife and kids to the Walmart, and they're driving at a high rate of speed. They're driving in a manner that is not conducive to what we consider a good driver in Calgary, but they're driving like they would have on the roads through, say, Kabul.
Yeah.
And so these kinds of things are really hard. And so to your point about veterans who are struggling, yes, we have homeless veterans. Mr. McCann, who started Field of Crosses and who has funded it every year since he started it, he started a campaign or a charity called Homes for Heroes, and that is creating kind of little small homes and small little villages for veterans. That's really important, and that spread from Calgary to Edmonton to Winnipeg, and soon to be further east. So so homelessness, food, as you alluded to, Jody. These are big issues facing our troops, and I don't want to, I didn't come on here to sort of make it all doom and gloom. We want to talk about the good parts of remembering our troops, and honoring is a good thing, and going to Field of Crosses and taking a moment is a good thing. So, but to your point, yes, there are a lot of issues facing a lot of our serving members.
Well, and I think it's not also just about doom and gloom. I like to have conversations about what's really happening in the world for a lot of people. And it's not always just about just being honored or, oh, yeah, I did that in my past. There's a lot of layers to that. And I think that we have to still have those conversations to remind people that there's people who are suffering on a level that we can't understand. And I think it's our human right to connect and circle back with those people in any way that we're able to. And even if you're not financially able to donate, like you said before, even with volunteering, it's even when someone's like, "Hey, I want to support something this year." You could be the person that puts on a Facebook post or thing like, "Hey, have you tried the Veterans Food Bank or, Homes for Heroes or whatever that looks like." Like we have the opportunity that our voice and our platforms can become our place to also do philanthropic work, right?
Yeah, like when you look at Field of Crosses, it's kind of like when we get to a concert. You show up and the stage is set and everything's good, and you don't realize the 19 hours that went in advance of that,
Oh,
setting
yeah.
it all up. And so at Field of Crosses, it's much the same way. There are an army of volunteers who donate their time a month or 2 months before to clean every cross. Every
Yeah.
cross has to be maintained, so some have to be replaced. Sometimes the vinyl of the names peel off. They have to alphabetize all the crosses, make sure they're in perfect order. So there's that group of people. Then there's a group that has to come out and drill a hole for every cross, right? 3,700 holes. All have to be lined up perfectly. Then another group has to come in and put a poppy on the cross and a Canadian or an American flag on the cross. So if you want to get involved on a granular level, there's opportunities to volunteer to bring that to life, so that thousands of other people can then come and enjoy it a couple of times a day and or on Remembrance Day. So there's that whole behind the scenes crew. What a great way to give back. And that's what I call transactional volunteerism, because volunteerism, the way we used to do it, in going back to your question about volunteerism used to be a lot more, you joined a service
A
club like
group. Yeah.
Kinsman or Cadets or Rotary or Lions. you went to a meeting every 2 weeks or every week, and you were kind of part of this fraternal group. Transactional volunteerism is the future and kind of the present, which is less of that structured year-long commitment. But hey, I can parachute in for a couple of weeks, do something good, and then parachute out. And we see that not just with, say, Field of Crosses, but if we host a Briar or if we host a Grey Cup, hey, I can come in, be part of that for a period of time, and then get out. So I think there's so many great ways that people can volunteer. And hey, maybe you got a veteran living on your block, and he or she is not able to shovel the bunch of snow that we got here in Calgary a couple weeks ago. Well, if you knew you had a veteran on your block, maybe they weren't even your next door neighbor, but if you knew you had a veteran a block away, would you consider going over in the mornings and helping shovel walks or do something, good for them? And or if we have a veteran who's deployed, our deployments last for upwards to 8 months when we're in that kind of war situation. So when we were 10 years in Afghanistan, our guys would go over for 8 months at a time. Well, guess what? The house is left behind here in Calgary, and somebody's got to keep those walks shoveled and keep the grass mowed. So, there's opportunities to, if you were interested in something like that, I would encourage people to call at least in Canada, and I don't know in the US what their situation is, but we have what we call military family resource centers, and they're scattered across our country. We have one here in Calgary, and the MFRCs are designed to provide this support that I just described to families and to members of our military. But, we talk a lot about our military at this time of year, but I also remind people about our first responders, our police, our fire, our EMS. Every day they put on their uniforms, and just like our soldiers, sailors, and aircrew, every day they go to work with knowing that hopefully it's going to be a good day, and they're probably going to come back for dinner at night or at the end of their shift. But every day there's an unlimited liability that they face willingly, voluntarily, and with full knowledge that they're putting themselves in harm, or potentially going to be called to put themselves in harm's way. And firemen, they kind of get it because, hey, the bell rings, we're going to a dangerous fire. They kind of know when things are going to get dangerous. When they're at the fire hall, it's usually pretty chill. But our police officers, as an example, they don't know if they pull up on a run-of-the-mill traffic stop, what could happen. And last 2 Fridays ago, we had a member who was dispatched to a call. There was a person in a parking lot playing loud music, and they went to check, why is the guy playing loud music? The guy turns around with a shotgun and shot our Calgary Police Service member. These guys live on that edge all day, every day, not knowing if they knock on a door at a house, what's behind that door.
Answering it. Yeah.
So, I always like to remember our veterans, but also remember our first responders who also put themselves in harm's way for, again, our public safety. Our military tends to be public safety on sort of a national or a world level, whereas our local first responders are on a local level, but they're doing the same job. They're allowing us to live a lifestyle that we're blessed to live.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad that you bring that up. Thank you for adding that in too. So there's lots of ways to honor, and the point of why I wanted to chat today is just to bring that into the forefront, to have conversation about how we can connect into taking time tomorrow, or like you said, any day of the week, any time of the year, to honor those who aren't asking for it in return ever, right? Like if you think of, like, obviously our World War I and II vets who are no longer with us, there was not that piece. But when you talk about our current military personnel and our current first responders personnel, they're not asking for that honor ever. You'll never hear that out of their mouth ever. But let's give it to them anyway.
Yeah, our police specifically, and in large part what's gone on in the U.S. With some of the different tragedies that have happened down there with George Floyd and a number of others, what that's done is it's really created a negative environment for policing, and that has carried across our border. And so our police don't get as much respect as they should, and they you're right, they don't ask for it, but just thanking them and saying, hey, appreciate you being there, because there's a whole lot of people that are vocal that, not a lot, there's a small group of people that are vocal, and they stand on the corners with megaphones and
Mhm.
placards saying, F you.
Yeah.
And that starts to eventually, these guys kind of close off a little bit. They become really sort of firewalled. And we just need to remind them that for every one of those people, there's 1,000 great people who go, no, we respect and appreciate our police officers. Our military we've had ebbs and flows. We've had years where we were told as soldiers, do not wear your uniform off base because the environment was so negative,
Yeah.
and people would be, saying pretty vile things. And so soldiers say, and by the way, when I say soldiers, I'm only referring to the infantry, because we often say soldiers as a big group. And I
Yeah.
always remind people we have sailors and we have Air Force as well.
Yeah.
So soldiers, sailors, and air crew, you often hear me say, or troops.
Yeah.
But our troops were told, don't wear your uniform off base. Then during the war years, like when we suddenly go to Afghanistan,
Yeah.
then everybody is, thank you for your service, thank you for your service. So then all of a sudden they're on a high. Now we're starting to ebb off again because we're not at war, and so people
Yeah.
start forgetting about them again. So it's this kind of cyclical ebb and flow that happens. I just prefer we stay up here and just say
Just
thank you for your service all the time.
thanks. Yeah. Absolutely. And that can be as simple as like, go get a jug of Tim Hortons coffee or whatever coffee you love. We don't have to give it to props to only Tim's, but like drop that off with a thing of muffins or donuts or cookies or something at your local police or fire departments.
Yeah,
It goes a long way.
it really does,
Just a
and
little love. That's all.
a little bit of love, which is what
That's
you're
all we
great
need in the
at
world.
sharing. Yeah, I know. Well, and that's why I'm glad to be here, because I've seen your virtual coffee club before, and never really had a chance to delve too deep into it. But I think what you're doing is spreading messages of positivity. You're getting into some good dialogues. I'm sure it's not always, happy topics. Sometimes you get into the real gritty stuff. But the fact that we're talking and we're just sharing messages of positivity, what more could you ask for?
Yeah.
Especially as we're on the eve of November the 11th on Remembrance Day. So
Yeah. Now,
tomorrow's a
before I
great
let you
day to.
go, because you said you could probably talk for all day, so you'll get to come back
I'm
and we'll get to
I'm
have all
proving
the
it.
topics. But you said that tonight there's a special ceremony at the Field of Crosses. Did you want to mention what that is really quick?
Yeah. Let me just figure out what time that is tonight, because I don't want to give you bad timings. Today's so 4:55 at the Field of Crosses. I'd get there a few minutes early. Each year on this night, we light a lantern. It's a beautiful sort of lantern that will burn through the night, and we'll light 3,700 of them, one in front of every cross. And tonight, the Lieutenant Governor of Alberta will be there. Members of the Netherlands government will always come in attendance, because Canada and the Netherlands had such a strong connection during World War II, and they've never forgotten it. So there'll be a bunch of dignitaries there, and it's a really special ceremony tonight, just because at sunset we light all these candles, and they'll burn through the whole night. They'll be removed tomorrow morning at around 5 a.m. Because they have to be off by 6 so that we can get ready for Remembrance Day down at the field. So yeah, it'd be a good one to come to tonight if you're available, and if you didn't get there this year, then come next year. And if you don't get there during a ceremony, like Jody says, just come some other time. Or there's lots of Remembrance Day ceremonies tomorrow. There's probably 6 or 7 main ones across the city, downtown at Central Memorial Park on 4th Street and 13th Avenue. That's where the cenotaph in the city is. There'll be a big ceremony there. Usually the museum has one. There's a bunch of different ones. So
Yeah.
just
And
find
most
one.
communities, I think, have something too. And it doesn't have to be big. Like last year, I was thinking we went to, so my son goes to school in a smaller community south of High River in, and they did their own little ceremony on the street. And I think there was maybe 20 of us.
Perfect.
That's it. And
You
it
know
was
what?
beautiful. Yeah.
You need one person in a phone booth to have a Remembrance Day ceremony.
Yeah.
And that's all you need. So it doesn't matter what you do, how you do it, where you do it, just do it. And if
Yeah.
you don't do it, shame on you.
Yeah. Yeah. It only takes a moment. Like you said, pull your car over, stop at home. Easy
A
little
pit,
things. But
a pittance of time. Watch that video. It kind of shares that message a little
yeah.
bit, and it's kind of
Okay.
a powerful video. Maybe you can share it on your link later,
Yeah. I
Jody.
will
But
do that.
I can't see any comments or questions. Does anybody have any thoughts or questions?
There's been no questions, just
I put them
people,
all to sleep.
yeah, no, just agreeing that about serving, thanking you for your time, saying good morning to you.
Good
So,
morning.
yeah,
Yeah.
morning.
Well,
Anyway,
hey,
I will let you get back to work now.
when I come back next time, I will not cry. Like there's when I
No,
see
you're
Jody, and
allowed.
I see Jody sometimes in the rodeo community, and the only time there's crying there is if you get hit by a bull. So,
Which
but
is
this
allowed,
stuff really does sort of, not just with
as it
me, but with
should.
veterans. It sort of sometimes there's just nowhere left to push it down. So, you know, there was a padre at Kandahar who on the last Remembrance Day ceremony, which I was at there on November 2011. So 11/11/11/11. It was easy to remember.
Yeah.
And I remember the words of the padre. They really just caught me right here. And he said, "The tear, don't hide the tears. The tears will heal you if you let them." Now you got to understand, he was addressing a group of, I don't know, there was probably 400 battle hardened veterans,
Yeah.
soldiers, in that compound, and they were all, with arms and
Mhm.
tactical vests on and so on. And so these are the toughest of the tough. And when I was in the military, they always used to say, uh, sorry is a sign of weakness.
Yeah.
And we're changing that message now. We're starting to say to our veterans, it's okay not to be okay. It's okay to cry. It's okay to have emotions. It's okay to not be okay. Because before we had to tough it out, and that led to serious mental issues.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you see veterans crying tomorrow, you'll know why.
Everybody should be crying tomorrow. We were created with emotions for a reason. So
Yeah, for
quit.
sure. But
No more pushing them down. Let them out. It's good.
well,
Well,
thanks for
thank
letting me
you.
do that here with you today,
Yeah, of
and
course.
to all the people who took time to take time to even just listen to an old fart like me. I appreciate it, and I really appreciate you, Jody. I appreciate all you do in sort of spreading your positivity throughout the year, and thanks for giving me the soapbox this morning, and thanks for everybody for taking time to listen to me.
All right. We're going to post the link to that video that you talked about, and hopefully people will have a chance to check out Field of Crosses at some point. There's nothing more breathtaking than standing at the edge of all of those crosses. It is something else. So,
Yeah, you
yeah.
bet. Hope to see. And if you see me, if some of you are there tomorrow, and I will be at Field of Crosses tomorrow, even though my regiment, I'm always torn. My regiment is at the Cenotaph at Central Memorial Park, but I have a connection to Field of Crosses. So if you see me there tomorrow, please stop and say hi. I won't know what you look like, but you know what my ugly mug looks like. So
Yeah.
come say hi, please.
Awesome. All right. Thank you, Sean. Thank you, friends. Have an amazing rest of your day. We, of course, won't be doing coffee club tomorrow morning in honor of Remembrance Day, but we will see you back here on Monday morning at 9 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. Bye.
Awesome.